Welcome to my channel. God damn it. Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. And I stopped off at the local farmers market to see if I can find some of those basil trees. You know what, guys? I did the same thing last year. I waited too long. I think they're gone. I haven't actually gotten out and looked, but they're not where they were 2 days ago. So it's just as well. All of my basil seems to be dying as soon as I cut some leaves off. And as you know, I've been bottling tomatoes, so I have been cutting a few off, right? But anyway, I'm going to go and have a look, and I guess I'll take you along inside with me, but I'm not sure that it's going to be a successful shopping trip, because to me it looks like they're all gone, and it's so packed that I'm not surprised that they're all gone. They were beautiful, and I remember filming them. Remember the other day? And so they're gorgeous, but unfortunately, I think I waited too long. Let's go have a look. So I'm in luck, and even though I prefer the big bushel for $19.99, there's no way I'm going to be able to manage that by myself or even fit it into the car. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab a buggy and go back and get one of those $9.99 pots, and hopefully it'll last. Maybe I'll come and grab another sometime this week. And I would get some tomatoes and peppers, but I'm still clearing out my freezer, and so there's still time for those. I don't want to get too much, because that's what happened last year. My fridge, my freezer got full, and I never really used them that much. So anyway, guys, the sauce that I made last night, the sweet red pepper sauce, is actually very delicious. I said it was tasting a little bland, but once all those flavors start to mingle, when it cools off, it's a wonderful sauce. And I'm not even sure I know if there's a name for it in Italian, or I would give it to you. And so after I pick up my basil plant, I'm going to go home and attempt to wash my balcony and the windows, because It was supposed to rain today. Look, it's starting to rain. It was supposed to thunderstorm today and it didn't, but it still managed to be quite a beautiful day. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to clear out my back seat and go grab the plant and head on home. No walk today because I'm going to get a lot of exercise, washing the windows. Hopefully, I will be able to do that before I get started on my pizza alla Puttanesca tonight. And so stick around for that. And I hope it turns out wonderful. I still have to boil the pasta, but that's okay. The sauce is all done. And so let's go. Wow, that was some lineup. And so it came to $11.25 with the tax, and so that's not too bad. Hopefully it'll last me a little bit because it looks very sturdy, but to have it die within 3 or 4 days, it's going to be a total ripoff. So anyway, guys, I guess I'll see you at home. It's starting to rain, so perfect timing, eh? Anyway, I'll see you guys later on. Hi everybody, so I'm home and I thought I would try to transplant some of my wilting basil, even though I overwater it and I make sure that I keep it moist throughout the day. I don't understand why it does this, and so maybe because it needed to be transplanted. So this is also pretty weary. So I'm going to try to see if I can tackle this job, and then maybe I'll do my balcony. So we'll have to see how this goes. Anyway, keeping my fingers crossed. So that did not go all that well, and a lot of it was so dead and dried out. Even though I tried as best I could to water all around, it may be the containers that they were in, the ones that I purchased them in. Anyway, guys, I'm not even going to bother washing the windows. I'm not having very good luck with house cleaning and other tasks today. The only thing that I managed well enough was to get myself another basil plant, and I hope it doesn't die right away. I feel like I should just go out and buy every basil plant available and hope for the best, but of course it's the season. And I don't understand it because I remember when we first bought Micha home, my mother and I, we also had all these new plants like the rosemary, which is still doing great, by the way, and all these basil plants that had lasted for years and years. Guys, they bloom day in, day out. Winter, spring, summer, fall. I don't understand why everybody is now saying that basil is seasonal. After my mother passed away, I still had a big, beautiful basil jungle in here. And I remember going to buy a few more plants. And they were beautiful. They lasted another 3-4 years. They never died, but I did use them up. And so after that, I went to get more plants, and that was it. I know that the plants that I originally had with my mother, she was the one who planted them and took care of them. It was lemon basil. But everything was fine. Even when I transplanted them, they never died. They were like wild weed. They couldn't die. It was like a jungle in here. So I don't understand why basil continuously dries out. It shouldn't. It shouldn't. It must be something something different, something else that I'm not touching on. And I buy them at the same places, so go figure. So guys, I'm going to put up the water for the pasta, and I did find a bunch of dough in it's pizza dough in my freezer, so I'm not even gonna make that. But so everything is basically ready. What I'm going to do is I'm going to turn on the oven to preheat it, and then I will bake the crust just a little bit, and then I'll add the sauce, which I made last night. So, yeah, let's get this show on the road and see how this pizza alla Puttanesca turns out. Hi guys, so the pasta is boiling, and I put the crust up for the pizza, and so I'm just gonna sit tight for a little while. And I thought I would have another discussion about the well, actually I brought up the origin of the Puttanesca recipe yesterday, and I'm not trying to tell a dirty joke, but it is very interesting in the way that it does reflect the role of women in the Middle Ages, especially after the fall of the Roman Empire and around the time of the Black Death pandemic. And so the reason why I'm so reminded of Italian culture when I think of this recipe is because of its exposure of women's roles in the early Renaissance and the Middle Ages. And so Boccaccio, I showed you the books that I studied in university. Boccaccio wrote 100 stories set in those times, and he wrote it as a way to appease all the upheaval that women went through during the Black Death pandemic. And as seen throughout his 100 stories, which is called, they are called the Decameron, it is very clear that Boccaccio shined women in a very bright light. He had such an utmost respect for them, and he portrays them in these stories as being very tough and resilient and cunning and patient, but also very lustful and naughty and often bawdy. I don't want to go there, but he tried to give us the whole range of the traits that a woman could possess. And so he gave a very different perspective on the way that women were seen in those days. He added another focus. And so he gave the audience, because in those days there were no readers, guys. It was an audience, and these sorts of productions were performed right in the balconies of typical everyday homes, right on the streets. And so, you know, he did portray them as being very smart and cunning. And in the 1300s, women actually were not even allowed to have a say in their choice due to the sorts of laws and strict gender roles that were intact in those days. And they were very forcibly, they were forced upon women. Women had to conform to these societal norms. And so very often they couldn't or didn't want to. And so Boccaccio showed that women could indeed stand up for themselves in many of these stories that he wrote. And so as seen throughout the Decameron, it is very clear that he had such an admiration for them. And so often these stories were just, some of them were tragic, some of them were funny, but in all of them, he really highlighted women. And so throughout these stories, he also believed that women should always follow what their heart desired, even though that is not what society often, predicted or dictated, right? So in many stories, such as the ones in which have been discussed most prominently in our culture today, they ended up, guys, doing something that women just could not do in those days without being punished severely for it. And they often took up other relationships besides their marriage relationship, their marriage partners. And I don't want to go so far as to talk too much about that, but you're getting my drift, right? And so Boccaccio demonstrated that women are, or were, at least in those days, more in tune with their feelings and more sensitive to their needs than men were, right? And so one particular story it was one of the first stories that I had ever read when I was beginning university, my studies in university, for my second degree, guys, which I have still not completed. And I doubt that I'll ever complete that one, but it was so interesting. And so what happened was, in one of these stories, there is a portrayal of a woman from Naples that is so accurate and so clearly defines the culture of Naples. So it just so happens that there is this young man from Perugia named Andruccio, and he went to Naples to buy a horse, or a few horses. And I have to say that this is one of his more comical stories. And so Andruccio is swindled. Not only is he swindled in Naples, but he's swindled twice. And so the first time, it is because he is kind of manipulated into meeting a beautiful woman who claims that he is her long-lost brother. And of course it's not true. And how would she know, right? So he is wined and dined at her house and invited to stay overnight. And whereupon he is further tricked into falling into a filthy sewer. And in those days, guys, the streets were sewers. There was no pavement and no sewer. It was just all sewer. And I don't know how they did it. But anyway, he fell into there, and needless to say, he lost his money intended for the purchase of the horses. And I guess what I'm trying to say is that this woman, just like the woman who devised this salsa Puttanesca, she was very typical of those women who worked in urban centers and were often trafficked by employers. Now, most women did not work, but those that needed to were often trafficked by employers who ran places like hostels and kitchens that were open for travelers. And so, anyway, back to the story. Later on in the story, Andrucho crawls out of the sewer, and through all the laughter of the neighboring people and women, mostly women, he runs away. He escapes, but he's still covered in filth and chased by two thieves who were actually plotting to rob the tomb of a recently deceased archbishop. And so these robbers were actually after the ruby ring that the archbishop wore. But when Andrucho crawled out inside of the tomb, he actually comes across the ring, but the robbers quickly shut the door and he gets entrapped in there. And so a little later on, another group of robbers also happens by with the exact same plan. Nice city, right? And so opening the tomb, one of the robbers crawled inside, and he immediately gets his leg bitten by Andrucho, who wanted to distract the robbers and catch them off guard immediately. And so what he did was they ran away, but Andrucho also was able to escape before they could shut the door on him. And so guess who ended up with the new or actually used ruby ring? It was Andrucho, who was suddenly provided again with enough money to buy his horses. And so that is the end of the story. And I don't know why, but that is the story that reminds me of the sauce that I made last night because of the history behind it. And so guys, I'm ready to prepare the pizza. And so this recipe doesn't call for any cheese at all, but because I do have some, I have an awful lot more in the fridge too. I'm going to be using a mixture of pecorino and Reggiano, Parmigiano Reggiano. And so first I'm going to cover it with sauce, and then I'm going to add the pasta. Now, normally, I think if I could have found smaller pasta, I would have gone for those, but I have these, so we'll have to make do with those. Anyway, I also am going to put maybe a few more olives on the top, and so it should be pretty good. The sauce itself is incredibly delicious. So, all right, hold on, and I'll let you have a look. So guys, that's it for tonight, and I hope that you enjoyed coming along with me today to pick up another basil plant. And thanks for listening to that Decameron story, and thank you so much for watching, and please don't forget to like and subscribe. Bye for now.